A spiritually gifted person is defined by more than mere sensitivity. They are in fact attuned to frequencies that most individuals cannot perceive. These individuals grasp deeper layers of reality, those which are not merely observed but are sensed and felt. However, this profound sensitivity presents a duality, serving simultaneously as a great strength and a potential danger. Consequently, some people will instinctively withdraw, attempt to silence you or isolate you, for your very presence illuminates aspects of themselves they are unwilling or unready to confront. Conversely, others will attempt to exploit you, recognizing that a person of your nature is capable of sensing, anticipating, bringing relief, and integrating psychic burdens which do not belong to them. To possess this elevated vibration is a serious matter. It grants access to sacred knowledge, yet also risks drawing you into carrying the unhealed wounds of the world. As I have often observed, the most finely attuned among humanity are the first to register that which the collective unconscious has not yet articulated. This is the very reason you possess within yourself the potential for great spiritual ascent, or the risk of profound self-loss. To recognize these psychic indicators is not merely beneficial. It is absolutely vital. For without a proper understanding of the power you carry, you will inevitably deplete yourself in the effort to conform to a world that functions at a radically different resonance than your own. Yet once this comprehension is achieved, you begin to exercise conscious choice over the energies you accept and those you must release. I shall therefore proceed to articulate 13 specific phenomena experienced solely by those who possess spiritual gifts. I implore you to attend to this revelation in its entirety. For the moment you grasp these indicators, you will understand that your inherent sensitivity was never an imperfection, but rather the intrinsic blueprint guiding you toward your awakening. 1. Environmental sensitivity. The first experience is environmental sensitivity. You feel space the way most people feel people. Some places drain you. Others rev you up for no apparent reason. And then there are those spaces you barely enter and already feel, I shouldn't be here. It doesn't matter if it's a waiting room, a bedroom, someone's house. The space speaks to you not with words but with sensations. You pick up on the atmosphere. That is your energy field reading the room before your rational mind can catch up. I have suggested that the collective unconscious shows up in atmospheres too. This means every space holds traces of the people who have been there, the unspoken conversations, the energy left behind. And if your sensitivity is turned on, you feel all of that before anyone says a word. Sometimes you try to brush it off. You try to be logical, not overreact. But something in you tightens and eventually you learn you are not imagining things. You are reading the field, and that is one of the first signs of a spiritual sensitivity that runs far deeper than most people realize. 2. Your body responds before your mind. The second experience is this. Your body responds before your mind. Ever felt a chill out of nowhere with no clear reason? Or a wave of nausea while talking to someone who was smiling? Or even a sudden heaviness in your chest or tension in your shoulders in a space where everything seemed fine? These signals are not random. Something real is shifting in your body. When the energy changes, it is like your system is constantly scanning the invisible and translating it into subtle symptoms. Sometimes it is like your body saying, something is off here. And you learn you need to listen. I believe the body is a living extension of the unconscious, that it carries memories, symbols, messages, that often the self, the center of the psyche, speaks through the body before the mind can process it. If you are spiritually sensitive, this becomes your own personal language. Your body talks, signals what words have not yet named. It warns. It hesitates. It rejects situations without you knowing why. And the hardest part, you often doubt yourself. You think you are overreacting until you realize every time you ignore those signals, you paid the price. It is like your soul is using your body as a translator. And once you start honoring that language, everything changes. You protect yourself better. You stand your ground with more clarity and you stop just perceiving the world. You start navigating it with precision. 3. Uncanny recognition from children, animals, and the elderly. The The third experience is this uncanny recognition from children, animals, and the elderly. Not through words but through presence. You have never had to force a connection with them. Just happens. Children look at you like they are studying you from the inside out. They go quiet, watch your gestures, sometimes walk right up to you like your presence is a safe space. Animals respond the same way. A restless dog suddenly lies down at your feet. A cat brushes against you, curls up on your lap like you are just another part of nature. Elders strike up conversations out of nowhere, and within minutes they are sharing personal stories they have not even told their children. You do not ask for it. You do not try to make it happen, but it always does. It has been like that since you were young. There is an instinctive reading that these deeply connected beings have, and when you are vibrating in truth they pick it up. It does not matter if it is a child, a stray dog, or an elder. They know when someone is not faking it. I have spoken of the collective unconscious, a realm of symbols, archetypes, and instincts. Beings that have not yet been conditioned to disconnect, like children and animals, access this realm naturally. And when they encounter someone on that same wavelength, they recognize it. The coherence between who you are inside and what you express on the outside. This is not merely a poetic idea. It holds truth in the study of natural behavior and the mind. The essence is that those least clouded by social artifice perceive the raw truth of another's being. When these three children, animals, and elders respond to you, it is not because of what you have done. It is because of who you are. And that perception is ancient. It is coherence felt by those who still feel. For feeling emotions that are not yours. The fourth experience is feeling emotions that are not yours, but that strike you as if they were. You are fine. Your day started well. Then you walk past certain people, step into certain rooms, overhear certain conversations, and something shifts. Your chest tightens, your breathing changes. A nameless sadness creeps in. A sudden irritation bubbles up. You try to rationalize it, but there is no clear cause because it is not yours. Spiritually sensitive people know this confusion. You start carrying emotions you never lived through. You leave simple interactions completely drained. You walk out of social gatherings like you just ran an emotional marathon. And often you do not notice it right away. Only later, when your body feels heavy, when your thoughts get tangled, when you know something is wrong but cannot explain what. This kind of emotional absorption has been studied in psychological practice. Some people are born with a more sensitive, more open, more receptive nervous system. They register other people's emotions before those people do. They feel the field. They detect the sorrow behind the smile, the anger in a tone, the exhaustion behind the silence, and they absorb it as if their body does not know how to shield in time. Dr. Judith Orloff describes this as emotional empaths internalizing feelings. This is not simply a mystical idea. It speaks to the heightened responsiveness of the sensitive constitution. I believe that the collective unconscious operates in everyone, but only some people feel it as a living force. To these individuals, the boundary between self and other is thinner, and so they live entangled, burdened, overflowing with emotions that do not have a clear owner. With time, those who live like this must learn to trace the signals, to track where the discomfort came from, to return what is not theirs. But until then it feels like chaos. You question yourself. You wonder if you are unstable, too sensitive, emotionally fragile. But this is not weakness. It is exposure without a filter. And only someone truly open can feel this much. 5. Waking up between 3 and 4 a.m. The fifth experience is waking up between 3 and 4 in the morning, often unprovoked and with a strange clarity. It is not ordinary sleeplessness. It is something subtler and older. You open your eyes in the dark with a sense that something called you. Your body is still, but your mind is awake. It is not confusion. It is awareness. And it happens so often it ceases to feel random. Spiritually sensitive people often experience this because they are pulled into the liminal state, that in-between zone when you are not quite dreaming and not fully awake, where logic fades and the unconscious is wide open. It is a space where intuition and memory blur into vivid clarity. Eastern philosophies speak of this time as the hour of the empty mind. In mysticism, it is when the soul is most receptive. I saw it as a psychic portal, a moment when the ego softens and the self rises without resistance. I once wrote, "The unconscious is like the night. It is where the truest images visit us." That is why many people, when waking at this hour, sense presences, receive insights, get crystal clear ideas, or simply feel a strange sense of meaning or emptiness, but an emptiness full of message. This kind of awakening is not a disorder. It is a calling. The world may be asleep, but something in you is wide awake. And the more you ignore it, the more persistent it becomes. Because that call, it is not coming from your head. It is coming from the oldest part of who you are. 6. Dreaming in ways more real than waking life. The sixth experience is dreaming in ways that feel more real than waking life. Vivid, prophetic, or recurring dreams that stay with you. These are not just dreams. They are full-body experiences. You feel them, your soul reacts, and the memory lingers. You wake up with full sentences in your head, physical sensations that stick, messages that feel like they had a very specific destination. Sometimes what you dreamed plays out days later. Sometimes the same dream reappears down to the details for years. Sometimes you dream of people you have never met but feel like you have known them forever. Spiritually gifted people have a more open dream channel because they do not treat dreams as noise, but as language. And that is exactly what dreams are. I devoted much of my work to dream study. To me, dreaming was how the unconscious speaks to the conscious, not through words but images, not through logic but symbols. And symbols, I said, are the language of the self. The images that show up in your dreams are not random. They are pieces of your deeper story trying to surface. Recurring dreams, repeated places, persistent emotions, all signs that an archetypal truth is pushing through. It might be a wound you have ignored, a gift you have buried, a truth your conscious mind is not ready to admit. Highly sensitive people access more of that content, which is why their dreams have weight and substance. You might have learned to dismiss dreams, to chalk them up to mental static, but if you pay attention, you will realize some of them told you everything you needed to know long before life confirmed it. Point 7. A lifelong sense of greater purpose. The seventh experience is this lifelong sense that you are here for something greater. Even if you cannot quite name what it is. It is hard to put into words because it is not a logical certainty. It is more like an existential itch, a constant feeling that something is missing, and that the missing piece is not out there. It is in here. You might try to go with the flow, study, work, build, consume. But eventually it all starts to feel hollow. What drives others does not drive you. What fulfills others leaves you empty, because there is something inside you that has not been activated yet. Something that wants to remember, reconnect, align with a mission you have not quite identified but deeply feel. I call this the call of the self. The moment when the ego begins to lose its grip and the deeper force starts to rise. It is uncomfortable, disorienting. It can feel like everything is falling apart. Your motivation, your sense of direction, your connection to what used to feel certain. But in truth, it is the beginning of your awakening. This is where many people start, the first knock of the spiritual path. And that awakening is rarely graceful in the beginning. It unravels you, disrupts your balance, breaks old narratives, but only to make space for your true path to emerge. The thing you came here to do, the thing only you can bring into the world. If this is happening to you, if you feel something inside rebelling against the surface level, disconnecting from the autopilot, reaching for something deeper, you are not alone. And yes, it has a name. It is the beginning of the individuation process. 8. Rejection of superficiality. The eighth experience is a rejection of superficiality and a near physical exhaustion when forced into meaningless social interactions. It is not that you dislike people. You just cannot remain long in spaces where you have to pretend to be someone you are not. Small talk at social events, overly formal meetings, gatherings where everyone is performing something. They drain you. You try to smile. You try to play along. You try to blend in. but your body starts to feel heavy. Your mind drifts, and suddenly you are wiped out as if your energy is being siphoned off in real time. All you want is to leave, or better yet, be somewhere real. People with spiritual sensitivity feel this often, not because they think they are better, but because they feel deeper. You pick up on what is not being said. You sense the disconnect between words and energy, and that creates static inside. You notice when someone is faking interest, hiding pain, putting on a face, and it pulls you out of presence. It disconnects you. It exhausts you. I explained this through the concept of the persona, the social mask we all wear to function in the world. But those on the path of individuation, the journey to becoming who they truly are, find that wearing this mask too long becomes unbearable. It weighs you down. It lies. What used to be a mask we wore in person risks becoming a full-time performance. Spiritually gifted people do not just dislike the superficial. They feel it as an energetic shock. The fatigue you feel is not social dysfunction. It is heightened awareness. You cannot settle for the shallow anymore because your soul has tasted what is real. That is why you crave conversations that go straight to the heart, people who do not need a performance, silences that feel like rest and not awkwardness. Because your energy is not just trying to exist. It is trying to connect. And if you find yourself growing less tolerant of the fake, know this: it is not social weakness. It is spiritual maturity. 9. Feeling out of place even around good people. The 9th experience is feeling out of place even around good people. This might be one of the hardest feelings to explain. You are in a calm environment with people you care about. Nothing is wrong. And yet, something inside you does not feel present. It is like your body is there but your soul is not. This sense of disconnection is not about ego. It is about energy. Ancient philosophers taught that everything in the universe vibrates. Nothing is still. And real connection only happens when those vibrations resonate. I acknowledged this when I spoke of meetings that nourish and meetings that deplete. People with awakened souls vibrate differently. They sense the room. They catch the micro-tensions, and often they find themselves in harmony with the space but not in sync. That is why you can feel out of place even at home, even among friends, even when loved, because it is not about affection. It is about alignment. And when the energy does not match, your body feels it long before your mind does. Whatever the term, the more awake you become, the more sensitive you are to this quiet misalignment between who you are and what surrounds you. It does not mean you are ungrateful or lonely. It means you need truth in order to feel present. Point 10. Attracting spontaneous confessions. The 10th experience is attracting spontaneous confessions. Even when you never ask a single question. You have been there. The conversation barely starts, and suddenly someone is sharing things they have never told anyone. Family secrets, old traumas, deep personal doubts. Sometimes it is someone you barely know. Sometimes it is a total stranger. And all it takes is your silent presence and something opens. It is not charisma. It is not curiosity. It is energy. Spiritually gifted people carry a presence that does not judge, does not invade. It simply holds space. Even in silence you transmit listening. Your presence relaxes the body, soothes the vibration, and people feel safe enough to drop the armor to finally be real. It is as if something inside you quietly says, "I can hold this. Go ahead." I deeply understood this. I said a true therapist is not the one who gives advice, but the one who can carry the weight of another's unconscious without trying to fix it. That is the impact sensitive people have. They act as symbolic mirrors. The other person sees themselves, hears themselves, begins to recognize themselves, and without even realizing it, begins to heal, just by giving voice to what has been trapped for years. It is beautiful, but it is also heavy because by the end of the day you have carried emotional weight that was not yours. You have held space for pain others could not handle. And even without saying much, you gave more than most ever do with 1,000 words. Being that kind of presence is a gift, but it is also a responsibility because often you are the only space where someone finally feels allowed to be human. 11. Isolation even when surrounded. The next experience, and I know many of you feel this as well, is the feeling of being isolated even when surrounded by people. It is a different kind of loneliness. Not about being alone. It is about not feeling together. You could be at a gathering, at a family dinner, in a stable relationship, and still feel completely out of sync, like you are watching life through some invisible window, like you are always slightly out of phase. This loneliness does not come from lack of love. It comes from lack of depth, from the exhaustion of trying to fit in, from the ache of feeling too much in a world that feels too little, from the silent awareness that most people are not really present. They are just repeating patterns, filling space, avoiding silence. I stated, the path to becoming your true self starts with a separation from the crowd, from the masks, from the noise. The call of the self, I said, often begins with a void, a quiet rupture between the life you are living and the life you know you are meant to live. Spiritually awakened people feel this sooner. What once made sense no longer does. Shallow bonds do not hold. Small talk feels heavy. Being constantly surrounded without true connection makes you feel lonelier than actual solitude. But this loneliness is not rejection. It is transition. It marks the beginning of a deep shift, from needing to belong at any cost, to aligning with your own truth, even if it costs you the company of others for a while. It is not easy, but it is real, and it is often the first step back home. Not the home of bricks and walls, but the inner home you have spent your life trying to remember. 12. Speaking the truth shakes people. Another experience. When you speak the truth, it shakes people. It does not matter the tone. You could speak gently, kindly, even hesitantly. But once the truth leaves your mouth, the energy shifts. People tense up. The air gets heavy. Faces close. Suddenly you are too intense, too negative, too dramatic. But deep down you know it was not what you said, it was what was exposed. Spiritually sensitive people have a direct relationship with truth. Not because they are morally superior, but because they feel what is off. And when they speak, it is not to attack. It is to name what has been avoided. To break the thick silence no one wants to touch. To acknowledge the elephant in the room everyone pretends not to see. I suggested that accessing deep parts of the unconscious also activates the collective shadow. Everything society tries to hide. And anyone who becomes a mirror to that shadow, even unintentionally, becomes a threat, because your presence reminds others of what they are trying to forget. That is why you have been rejected for stating the obvious, labeled troublemaker for trying to fix what is clearly broken, misunderstood for simply being honest. The world is so accustomed to half-truths, strategic silence, and appearances that anyone aligned with the real becomes unbearable. Speaking the truth is a spiritual act because it is not just about words. It is about vibration. It is about reminding people of the part of them that still feels, even if they pretend not to. 13. Constant longing for the sacred. And the final experience is this: a constant longing for something sacred, something you cannot name but feel as a living absence. Since early on you felt like you were searching for something, a place inside you have never seen but somehow remember, a presence you have never met but deeply miss. A homesickness that does not belong to this life, but colors everything you seek. This longing comes in waves. Sometimes in the quiet of the night, sometimes in nature, sometimes in the middle of a deep, unexplainable ache. And you realize regular life does not satisfy. The routines, no matter how functional, do not fill you because what you are missing is not outside. It is above or maybe within. I said the deepest symbol of the unconscious is the self, the total image of the soul, and that even without knowing it, we are all trying to return to that wholeness. That is the real spiritual journey. Back to your center. Back to who you were before you forgot who you are. Spiritually gifted people feel this call more intensely. They do not want distraction. They do not want to numb out. They want to return home even if they do not know where that home is yet. And yes, that longing often hurts because the modern world keeps trying to stuff the sacred with noise. But that ache you carry is not failure. It is a signal. It is a self-calling. It is the memory of something you once were and are trying to become again. Call it God, source, presence, wholeness. What matters is you feel it. And that feeling, that is the beginning of your path. Perhaps you recognized yourself in one or two of these things. But if you saw yourself in many or in all, know this: it is not coincidence. It is a path. All of these things you recognized are signs that something in you is awake in a world that is still sleeping. And while it may feel lonely, it is the soul's choice. It is preparation. I stated those most connected to the invisible often carry the deepest wounds of the visible. And that true individuation is not about becoming special. It is about becoming whole. And becoming whole means you will have to walk through the chaos, through loss, through pain. Because the healing you bring to the world is the same healing you had to find on your own. And as heavy as that might feel, it is also your compass. Because when you understand what is happening within you, you begin to understand what is happening around you. You stop accepting everything. You stop absorbing everything, and you start choosing consciously what you let in and what needs to go.